Om Namo Narayana, Om Namah Shivaya, Shiva Om, Shiva Hum, Om. Welcome to another satsang with your host, Chuck the Yogi from the Yogi Cave. This time around, I have the phone a little bit closer to me because, for whatever reason, probably software reasons, none of my jacks on my phone work, so I can't use the microphones I would usually use, which would allow me to stay further back. So I'll have to rely on the phone's microphone. Anyway, that's the reason for that. And it's a balmy 60 degrees in the Yogi Cave, but my tumo, or my chandali, or my tapasya is kicked into high gear, so it's all good in the hood when you're a true yogi. And during the winter months, it goes down to around 48, 50. But again, no problem if you got what it takes to be a yogi. Anyway, so where was we? Let's see. I think I already hit 2.24, so I'm just going to move on. 2.25. Tad abhavat samyoga abhavo hanam tad drishyehe kaivalyam. With the disappearance of this nescience, the correlation also disappears. This is total cessation, the aloneness of the power of seeing. So, I think, my opinion, my humble opinion as a yogi, I feel that this was the closest that Patanjali ever got to defining nirvana, right? And the Buddha never wanted to get into controversy of what that meant, because there's always been these controversies as to, well, nirvana is this, or nirvana is that, or samadhi is this, or samadhi is that. So it really comes down to, as it says in Vedanta, neti neti. It's not this and it's not that. So whatever it is, Patanjali defines it as a cessation, right? All these fluctuations and these karmas and all these ups and downs cease to exist. And therefore, the seer and the seen become one. There's nothing in the way anymore, no screen to hide out what's going on behind the scenes, so to speak. So I think that's as good as a definition that we can arrive at as to what this is, whatever it is. Samadhi, nirvana, however you want to define it. Enlightenment, so forth and so on. 2.26. Viveka kyatir aviplava hana upayaha. The means of attaining cessation is the unceasing vision of discernment. So this sensation is not equal to nihilism. Buddha denied being a nihilist. I know nihilism has been very popular in the 20th century. I get that. But yoga is not about nihilism. Those are the Nastikas, right? That's something separate. So what he means here, there is this seeing, right? It's not just nothing. It's more like no particular thing. There is this act of seeing, this never-ending act of perception, not of any particular thing. It's perception itself being revealed and naked. It's the closest way I can describe it without being pornographic, as far as like what this is, right? This process. Anyway, 2.27. Tasya saptada paranta bhumihi prajna. For him, the yogi, who possesses this unceasing vision of discernment, there arises, in the last stage, transcendental insight, which is sevenfold. And the sevenfold transcendental insight is that which is to be prevented, future suffering, has been successfully identified, number one. Number two, causes of suffering have been eliminated once and for all, number three. Through the ecstasy or samadhi of restriction, complete cessation has been achieved. Number 4, the means of cessation, the vision of discernment has been applied. Number 5, sovereignty of the depth consciousness or buddhi or sattva has been achieved. Number 6, primary constituents have lost their foothold, and like rocks falling from the edge of a mountain, or as the mantra says, as a ripe cucumber falls from its stem, towards dissolution, that is, full reabsorption into the transcendental core of the universe. Number 7, self abides in its essential nature, undefiled and alone. So, that is what transcendental insight means, according to Patanjali. It's sevenfold. There's the sevenfold, because 7 has always been a transcendental number, right? So, it's the way of defining what this accomplishment is for the yogin who achieves it. Anyway, so 2.20. Now we're getting into Eightfold Yoga. Yay. 2.28, which is the essence of the Patanjali Yoga Sutra. It's called Ashtanga Yoga, or the Eightfold or Eight-Limbed Yoga. So, anyway, 2.28. Yoga Anga Anushtana Ashuddhi Kshaya Jnana Tiptir Aviveka Kyatehe. Through the performance of the members or limbs of yoga, and with the dwindling of impurity, there comes about the radiance of gnosis, which develops up to the vision of discernment. So the radiance of gnosis. What is the radiance of gnosis? Well, this means this immediate perception or understanding of the nature of reality itself. It's not a conjecture at that point, right? It's not a theory, right? Much of the Western mind is based on theorizing, creating thesis, and so forth and so on about this, that, or the other. Now, when it comes to yoga, there has to be this immediate apperception of the thing in and of itself. There's not this separation between me and this other thing that I'm perceiving, right? So yoga, true yoga, is radical. It wants to rip all that apart, deconstruct that, if you will, since that's such a popular term nowadays, deconstruction. It wants to deconstruct all that and get to the essence of it all. Skip all the BS, so to speak. And that's what this is about. 2.29. Here we go. Probably leave it here. Yama, niyama, asana, pranayama, pratyahara, dharana, dhyana, samadhayo, shtavangani. So these are the limbs, right? Restraint, observance, posture, breath control, sense withdrawal, concentration, meditative absorption, and ecstasy are the 8 members of yoga. You can see all these things as steps that move up to the top of the pyramid, right? As ancient Egypt had this pyramid, right? And at the very top of it, there was this gold capstone. So you can look at this, and the most ancient pyramids were stepped pyramids, right? So each one of these steps leads up to the golden capstone, which is samadhi, starting with restraint, observance, posture, breath control, sense withdrawal. So the first, restraint, observance, posture, breath control, we're dealing with physical, physiological, behavioral techniques, right, to enter what becomes in sense withdrawal, right? To get sense withdrawal is kind of like the threshold between the outer court of the temple and the inner court of the temple. So you have concentration, meditative absorption. These are the inner limbs. So you have the outer limbs, and then you have the inner limbs. So the outer limbs lead to the inner limbs. The outer court leads into the inner court of yoga, right? concentration and meditative absorption. This is the middle chord, and this leads to the Holy of Holies, which is ecstasy or samadhi. So I know that's a mouthful, and that's why I'm going to leave it here. Om Namo Narayana, Om Namah Shivaya, Shiva Om, Shiva Hum, Jai Ma, Jai Mahakal, Om. Till next time.